The trilateral negotiation process between the US, Ukraine, and Russia has been suspended due to the situation in the Middle East. This was stated by the spokesperson of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hyrhitiki. He also confirmed that the consultations have been postponed several times already, but the teams are in daily communication with each other. And according to Tiki, in order to achieve new results in the peace process, a meeting of the leaders is necessary, which Russia is clearly not ready for at the moment.
Although the teams are in daily communication with each other, this working contact does exist. It's just that to move this negotiation process forward, meetings are needed. And of course, a meeting of the leaders is necessary. We continue to maintain the position that a meeting of the leaders could unlock and achieve a breakthrough in the peace process. Unfortunately, from the Russian side, we have not seen and do not see any willingness for such a meeting of the leaders. And overall, we do not see any willingness from Russia for diplomacy. We see a focus on war, on attempts to achieve their goals by military means, although it will not be possible to achieve them by military means.
Meanwhile, a meeting of the Ukrainian-American negotiating teams is expected this Saturday in the United States of America. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced this in his address. He noted that it is time to end the pause that has formed in the negotiation process to end Russia's war against Ukraine.
Signals are coming from the American side indicating their readiness to continue working within the existing negotiation formats to end Russia's war against Ukraine. There has been a pause in negotiations. It is time to end it. And we are doing everything to ensure that the negotiations are truly substantive. The Ukrainian delegation, specifically the political part of the negotiating team, is already on its way. This Saturday we expect a meeting in the United States of America. We discussed the negotiations in detail with Rustem Umerov, Kirilo Budanov and David Arakamia. Sergei Kislitsia will also take part in the meetings. Our priority is to do everything possible to achieve a just peace. I thank everyone who is helping with this.
Dmytro, good morning. We are glad to see you on the 3D broadcast.
Glory to the heroes. Hello.
So, Dmytro, do you have any expectations regarding the upcoming meeting between the Ukrainian delegation and the American side? In your opinion, what issues will be discussed?
Fundamentally speaking, the high-level diplomatic meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations is specifically designed to encourage the American side to finally initiate the necessary processes, putting pressure on Russia with the goal of continuing the negotiation process. Well, it's clear that with this administration, the phrase putting pressure on the Russian side still looks somewhat hypothetical for now. Nevertheless, Ukraine, firstly, is demonstrating its readiness. Secondly, is taking an active stance. And thirdly, is showing that peace is needed. And at the same time, Ukraine is not merely a passive object of international politics, but rather a sovereign subject. Because President Zelensky consistently reminds the world and explicitly states, by the way, that the appropriate moment has finally arrived for a high-level meeting with Donald Trump. In other words, all these statements that nothing depends on Ukraine and that the situation will unfold however it may, this is what's most important right now. The task is to resume the negotiation process and to ensure that the American side reminds the Russians of the need to restart these negotiations.
Tell me, overall, if we are now talking about what the parties might achieve in the future, are there currently any points that could bring their positions closer together? Or is it, like they used to say, let's wait until after the holidays, let's wait until after Iran, after the Strait of Hormuz, and only then maybe we can come to some sort of agreement?
Well, regarding Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, I think it's clear that this situation has an impact. And Zelensky has also spoken about this. But in reality, the war is still taking place in Europe. And it's clear that even Trump might claim that he could withdraw from the negotiation process, but that's also just a form of pressure. Russia's war against Ukraine is no less important than what is happening in the Persian Gulf. And that's why no one is going to leave this negotiation process. On the contrary, such statements are also a way to put pressure on Europe and Ukraine as if to say you'll be left alone, even though in reality it's not in the US's interest to withdraw. That's for sure. And regarding common ground, yes, there really isn't any, for the simple reason that Russia remains absolutely in the same positions as before. And as the Ukrainian government consistently maintains, if you do not put sustained strategic pressure on the Kremlin, no meaningful progress will ever be achieved. Everything will simply remain in this current state of deadlock, exactly as it is now. And so, by the way, one of the tasks of the Ukrainian delegations is also to demonstrate the elements that can and should be used to influence the Russian Federation. But yes, you are absolutely right, in my opinion. For now, it's too early to talk about any breakthroughs if Russia remains in its previous positions, and the United States, if there is no pressure on the Kremlin, and at the same time Europe is not yet fully involved in the negotiation process, then probably success is unlikely under such conditions.
Dmitry, let me ask briefly. As you say, Europe is not involved. How can Europe be involved? Is it possible that Ukraine could somehow help with this? Or will Europe only take action once it asserts itself with decisive steps? Yes, by showing strength, the outlook here, well, perhaps doesn't look very promising.
Well, we see that Europe is making itself heard. And Merz, we've been quoting him a lot over the past 2 weeks. Yes, he talks about this. And when the negotiations took place in Switzerland a month ago, European delegations were present there as well. But Ukraine, I think that beyond what we can do by simply talking about it, it's unlikely that anything more can be done at this point. Indeed, when it comes to Europe's activity at the moment, it seems there is no unified European position. We see that even the 20th package of sanctions hasn't been adopted, which, by the way, is more, it would have been more effective in putting pressure on Russia. And the American side would see that there is such pressure. If this European unity, which exerts pressure, really existed, then yes, probably this inclusion of Europe as a separate entity, which again has certain mechanisms to influence the process, would make things move faster. For now, we see what we see.
Dmitry, here's something else that's interesting. You already mentioned that the Ukrainian delegation, when communicating with the American side, should point out, let's say, all these nuances regarding the Russian Federation that America should pay attention to. I'm curious, what are they? And by the way, in what way, by what actions can the Russian Federation now actually demonstrate that they are indeed using this pause, which arose because of the conflict in the Middle East, for their own purposes? For the purpose of dragging things out and showing that they do not want to move toward peace?
In fact, the mechanisms are well known, and Ukraine has spoken about this. And I think that there are some things that the American side will once again find unpleasant to hear regarding the overall futility of playing games with sanctions against Russia, whether to lift them, not to lift them, or to promise to lift sanctions or to expand sanctions. For example, there is Rosatom, with which the American side continues to cooperate. So these are the things that I truly think can and should be thoroughly discussed, and that will also be a significant part of the broader conversation. And
so, if we sum it up, our expectations regarding how this negotiation track might develop further, please share your detailed expectations.
I think the negotiation process will be long and exhausting. And yet it is necessary. Ukraine, at the very least, is demonstrating a willingness to engage in the negotiation process. Ukraine is showing readiness for certain compromises, and that at the same time, nothing can be imposed. As for deadlines like wanting to have it signed by Thanksgiving, well, just sign it quickly. The 28 points that the Russians have drawn up. And if, after all, this negotiation process includes an important humanitarian component, such as prisoner exchanges, then it won't have been in vain. Looking at it from another perspective, I strongly believe that until the specific moment when the United States fundamentally shifts its strategic diplomatic approach toward the Kremlin, it is highly improbable that we can realistically anticipate this complex negotiation process to succeed. Continuously repeating the exact same strategic actions that have previously led us nowhere is, to put it quite mildly, entirely futile.
It's interesting that now Russia and Iran are together as allies publicly. They are carrying out some actions together. Yes, and even if Russia is still finding some kind of benefit in this, take Iran, for example, in the Middle East. It carries out all sorts of different actions, even of a terrorist nature, including shelling and so on. It's interesting that now they are developing espionage activities together. And what's more, they are recruiting ordinary Europeans. For this espionage activity, for sabotage, according to the publication Politico, and they say that people are being recruited via the internet, offered money, and so on. And we're talking about ordinary citizens who previously had no connection to intelligence services. What's interesting is how much benefit the Russian Federation currently has. Benefit even, let's say, not from the point of view of its own, some kind of unwillingness to move toward peace, but rather as support, perhaps, for this Iranian regime in order to, well, like all great villains, all great dictators always have the desire to take over the whole world, right? It's not just a local story. How much do you see benefit now on this side as well? Yes, to develop, to continue, to somehow support perhaps Iran so that this conflict continues?
There is already substantial, clear, and completely unequivocal evidence of direct support from the Russian Federation and of malicious hacker activities by pro-Iranian groups against critical United States national infrastructure. Moreover, by the way, these efforts are also specifically directed and coordinated at hospitals, at completely civilian facilities to deliberately create chaos. It is obvious that these Russian hackers, who are overseen by the main intelligence directorate, Russian military intelligence, they possess a significantly broader range of technical capabilities and professional experience, and they are more than willing and eager to provide detailed instruction and share their extensive knowledge with cybersecurity professionals and hackers within Iran. Again, we have already talked extensively about detailed intelligence information and data and various other significant aspects of the support provided by the Russian Federation. If, as it clearly seems, the current administration of the United States wants to deliberately overlook these matters, then it follows as a natural consequence that the Russian Federation will simply continue with its course. The second point is that, after all, they will hide this and do so very deliberately. It is clear that opposing the United States is beneficial for them. At the same time, politically, we see how Russia is simply trying to undermine the American side's initiative in the Persian Gulf. And there it is coordinating with the People's Republic of China, as they tried to do last week. At the level of the UN Security Council, they tried to block the work of the committee that reviews Iran's nuclear program and makes decisions on sanctions. Lavrov spoke with the Turkish foreign minister literally the day before, yesterday or 2 days ago, in relation to the comprehensive joint assessment of the current geopolitical situation in the Persian Gulf region and the vital necessity to maintain peace and security. The export of oil and gas. So yes, all of this is happening. I think, yes, this is indeed a fact. Russia supports Iran on various levels. At the level where it causes obvious harm to the United States, they try to hide it, and they will always deny it. But on the political level, for the most part, they don't even try to hide it. At the level of international organizations, they even form blocs with other countries in order to make this influence stronger.
Yes, Dmitry, well, as they say, we will watch and wait for the next round of negotiations wherever they may take place. Thank you for the conversation and for joining our broadcast. Let me remind you that we were joined by Dmitry Levis, political scientist, international affairs expert, and expert at the United Ukraine Center.